I am doing this presentation on the physical and cognitive development perspectives on these few chapters. The first chapter is chapter 3 with infancy and childhood. A couple of the concepts that I found interesting were depth perception, focusing on faces and sleep. With depth perception, Gibson's apparatus with the table that allows babies to see depth is very interesting because they haven't been exposed to that before and they already know that there's a cliff there. With focusing on faces, babies tend to gravitate more towards their mother and attractive people. And with sleep schedule, babies usually sleep about 14 hours throughout the day, but it isn't consecutive. They do wake up about every 3 to 4 hours. And then we move into chapter 5, early childhood, Piaget's preoperational stage of thinking. There's preoperational and concrete. Preoperational is with young children, they lack the ability to look at things in a bigger picture. And with concrete thinking, older children are able to reason about the world in their own way and make their own decisions. And then there's by Kotsky's zone of proximal development. This focuses on how children can achieve things with guidance and what they can achieve without guidance. And then we move into chapter 6, middle childhood. It's very interesting how motor skills, obesity, and health do affect a child. If a child is more physically active, they are healthier, they are more physically skilled. With memory, children use it to process things into permanent storage and they can start rehearsing things in order to retain it longer. Another thing that was very interesting was ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's one of the most widely diagnosed orders in the US. Kids who suffer from it have issues with controlling impulse, memorization, doing basic tasks, and a lot of other symptoms. And then we move into adolescence, chapter 8, something that all adolescents go through, which is puberty. It varies from each person, each gender. So that's very interesting. With the physical changes, girls grow in different areas compared to boys. And another thing that's definitely more prominent in adolescence are eating disorders. There are two kinds, anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. Anorexia nervosa is when people starve to get to their ideal weight. And with bulimia, it's not as bad because they do have that weight, but they do consume an excess amount of calories and then get rid of it by either fasting or purging. And there's another one that's binge eating. This one is when somebody eats a lot and then they feel guilty and have feelings of depression and shame. And then we move into chapter 10, identity. This one's very interesting because identity definitely describes how you perceive yourself, how external and internal factors affect you. And another thing is how being in college, there are multiple reasons why you go to college. You can either do it to find a career, to grow intellectually. And with attachment to theory and relationships, those are very interesting because when you're younger, the type of attachment you have affects the way you are with your friends, with your relationships, and your significant other. And then we move into chapter 12, midlife. So as we're growing older, women do have body image issues just as if they were an adolescent. They start to compare themselves to others. There are two types of intelligence, crystallized and fluid. Crystallized is the things that we have known and acquired throughout our lifetime, and fluid is what we can think of on the spot. And with mental stimulation, people who work jobs that are mentally stimulating and always working their brain, they are known to have more mental flexibility. So it is recommended that you always try to keep mental exercises. And then as we enter old age for chapter 14, physical aging is a normal part of life. There are sensory, motor changes. You have trouble with vision. As you enter your late 40s, there are troubles with seeing objects up close, sometimes in dimmer light. And then there's troubles with hearing. When you're older, you lose it. This one's a bit more harsh than vision because you kind of lose your touch with the outside world. And then there are neurocognitive disorders, things such as dementia, Alzheimer's. It's an illness that affects the person's ability to live independently. And those are the physical and cognitive development perspectives for these chapters.